guess what we noticed with this book is just how much urgency there is. And a lot of the prescriptions you have need to happen over the next 2 years. So why is it so urgent?
We lay out sort of a 24-month schedule for, really getting moving on a lot of the steps that we lay out in the various chapters across the book. That is because we already know that Xi Jinping is acquiring a capability. He's already acquired massive capability and has every intention to keep building those capabilities in order to make a blockade up to an invasion of Taiwan look like a fait accompli. I'm not sure that Xi is yet confident that he has got all the pieces in place for that, but we don't know for sure what his calculation is. What we do know is that trend line is an ugly one from the perspective of Taiwan and Japan and the United States. We also know that Xi Jinping has made clear his intention to, as he put it, resolve or solve the Taiwan question, 解决台湾问题. This is the phrase he used apparently in his meeting with President Biden in San Francisco late last year. And Xi Jinping even went farther than he had typically gone in that meeting. According to a senior U.S. official who gave a readout of that meeting, Xi Jinping said, look, peace is all well and good, but at some point we need to move towards solving this. So that told me that Xi was now prioritizing annexing Taiwan over the peaceful status quo, that it is a higher priority for him, even if it means risking war. It's a higher priority for him to annex Taiwan than it is to maintain the peaceful status quo. That's my reading of that statement. Xi Jinping, in some of his speeches, has added to his rhetoric over time. I believe it was in 2021. I'll have to go back and check my first chapter of the book. But he made a speech where he said, unifying China, unifying Taiwan is the essence of the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation, which is sort of his bumper sticker phrase, this, the Chinese dream for the great rejuvenation. This is his bumper sticker phrase for, I think his legacy, everything that he's trying to achieve, encapsulated in one phrase, both in terms of domestic policy and global policy and the rest, security policy. So I think we should take those phrases and these actions very, very seriously. Take Xi Jinping at his word when he makes phrases like that to his own party infrastructure. That tells me that we should expect that on his watch, he's going to push things to a head. And I don't think Americans or anyone else has a very good record of getting the timing exactly right in their forecasts for when dictators are going to move into a new aggressive phase. We didn't get it right with the Taliban, or at least the Biden administration kind of missed the boat there. Same with Putin. We did get exquisite intelligence that President Biden rightly made public in those final weeks leading up to the invasion that he really did intend to invade. But during the course of the first 2 years of the Biden administration, or rather, over the course of 2021, there was, I think, very little expectation that Putin was going to try something like this. Otherwise, Biden would not have halted the flow of lethal weapons to Ukraine. So we don't have a good record in getting the timing right. That's why I think we would be wise to assume that we are already in the window of danger. And so the 24 months we think is a speedy but achievable timeline for implementing a lot of what we lay out in the book.
Well, so on that point, China recently announced the purge of two former defense ministers, Li Shangfu and Wei Fenghe, specifically in the charges against them for corruption that seriously damaged the People's Liberation Army. Do you think that has bought the U.S. time? Was this actual damage? Should it even matter to the U.S. what internally is going on in the CCP? Or should we just do what we do?
Yeah. And by the way, I saw that the Russians just purged I think it was their deputy war minister. I wonder whether that's tied to. Remember, he would have been one of the counterparts of Li Shangfu. I don't know; it's speculative, but I wonder if there is some kind of a nexus there. I wonder, but you're right. I mean, the fact that he's just cashiered and purged 2 defense ministers plus a bunch of generals in the very critical branch of the PLA, which is the rocket forces, and they have responsibility for the nuclear arsenal, a big part of it. The fact that he's gone through that purge suggests to me that he may not believe that he has in place the team he needs to, quote, solve the Taiwan question yet. But it also suggests to me that I'm a bit disconcerted by the idea that he believes he needs different people in place in his nuclear forces, ahead of pushing things to the boiling point vis-a-vis Taiwan. So it may be that this suggests that he's not quite ready, but it also means that he's trying to get ready. So it's a glass half full, half empty.
I have a question about riskiness, and you mentioned that it might be getting to the point where it's riskier for Xi Jinping to, it's less risky to invade Taiwan than it is to not invade Taiwan. How do we make it less risky for him to not invade? Like, is there a way that, besides obviously the deterrence, the U.S. could, help Xi Jinping, I don't know, save face by not invading? Like, is there some way to rebalance that risk?
I would argue that Xi Jinping does not need Taiwan. He wants it. I don't think he needs it. I don't think that his power is dependent on him, annexing Taiwan. And in fact, I would even argue that over the course of the last 40 years or so, Beijing has benefited more from Taiwan being de facto separate, a separate government from the People's Republic of China's government. That has actually been a net benefit for China, because if Taiwan had been annexed 40 years ago, and it would have meant that it would have had far worse outcomes economically, and because the People's Republic of China has had far worse outcomes economically than Taiwan, and Taiwan's economy surged ahead as a democracy much faster than it did as an autocracy. So I think that they benefit from the fact that Taiwan, for many of those years during the reform and opening period that Deng Xiaoping kicked off, Taiwan was the main provider for many of those years of foreign direct investment, of technology, of managerial expertise and engineering into the mainland economy. So China benefited from having a separate Taiwan, just as it did from having a separate Hong Kong. So I don't believe that he needs Taiwan. I think he wants it, and he thinks there's an opportunity. So what we need to do is inject some pessimism into his calculus. Part of it is to say, look, if you try this and you fail, that's really going to be dangerous. That's going to be a far worse outcome than simply not attempting to take Taiwan in the first place. I think that Geoffrey Blaney, the author of The Causes of War, the great Australian historian, looks at overweening optimism as one of the consistent indicators that war is near. When someone who starts to feel a high degree of confidence and optimism that they can achieve things through war that they wouldn't otherwise be able to achieve, and that they're likely to prevail in that war decisively, and that the war is likely to be fast. When you start to see that kind of thinking take hold, look out. That is your lead indicator that war is nearing. That's also kind of a counterintuitive point in some sense, isn't it? I mean, to say that like optimism leads to war, but it does. We need to be focused on eroding Xi Jinping's sense of optimism about his odds of doing well in a conflict over Taiwan. And we can do that. We can do that without having to build a 400 ship navy like China's building, We don't have to spend, $1 trillion on this kind of stuff. We need to spend tens of billions of dollars on some of these capabilities that have been tested, but which we have very few, we have in very limited numbers, things that would endanger a maritime force coming over from the mainland.